Hello everyone, welcome to VizConnect, cutting thick new with the art of data visualization and storytelling. My name is Sagar Kapoor. I'm part of customer success team at Tableau. So VizConnect is a weekly community call which helps you to connect with the art of data visualization and storytelling. We have a YouTube channel, go ahead, subscribe to it, some great content waiting for you. We have a LinkedIn group, go ahead, connect with each other and learn from each other, and follow the hashtag VizConnect on Twitter to get updated with all our latest sessions. With that, Tableau 2021.1 is here. Go ahead and check out. We have Einstein Discovery in Tableau now. Level of detail expression you can now easily create as quick LODs, unified notification experience on Tableau Server and Tableau Online, and enjoy a significant Azure connectivity improvements. Just go ahead and check it out and let us know your feedback about it. Just a shout out to Mentoring Meetup. If you want to be a mentor, if you want to help someone to improve their data visualization and storytelling skill, if you want to be a mentor to add value in someone's life and also learn for your journey also, go ahead and apply as a mentor in Mentoring Meetup. With that, let me go ahead and introduce our speaker for today. It's my honor and privilege to welcome Samuel Parsons. He's a Tableau Zen Master and a lead data visualization developer for Dyson Technology Limited, working within its global quality and sustainability team. He utilizes Tableau every day with a remit to continually push visualization, thought leadership, level up, and create core content. His background is in product design, finance, and analytics, but his real passion is centered on the visualization design, exploring what good data design is and how that can encourage enablement and engagement. A lot of his experimentation and exploration is done through Sam's use of his own Tableau public profile and his own blog, reflectionsindesign.com. So without further ado, I will hand it over to Sam to talk about the role of data visualization specialist. Sam, over to you.
Okay, thank you. Just bear with me and I will try and share my screen. So let's pick this one here. Okay, can you see my screen? Hopefully you can. I think I am sharing.
It's still loading, Sam.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Have you shared your screen? Do you want to try it again?
I did. Try it again. I did click it. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, that looks like it's doing something. Okay, you can see it? Yep.
Yep.
Okay, right. First of all, thank you for inviting me along, Scar. So this is my second VizConnect talk, so it's always a privilege to come and talk to you guys. So today I'm going to be talking about a topic that is very close to my heart, which is the role of the data visualization specialist. I am a data visualization specialist for my own company, and so I'm going to be talking to you about this from my perspective and my experience of data visualization. Where this talk came from to begin with was I was contacted on Twitter a few months ago by a student who was asking me what tangible things can they do to get into a role such as this? What do they need to do to become a data visualization specialist? And that sort of kicked this off in my head that maybe this would be a nice topic to talk about. I hope that I can demystify the role a little bit because there are some misconceptions about what a data visualization specialist role does. So to begin with, I've just got something on the top of my screen that won't go. It's gone away now. Perfect. So to begin with, I'm going to talk a little bit about me just to introduce myself to people that don't know me a little bit further than what Sagar's just given you. So this is me. I live in the UK in the southwest of England near a city called Bath. Bath is a Roman city originally, and it is famous for its Georgian architecture. It's a World Heritage City. It's a lovely, picturesque place. So if you're ever in England, come and visit it because it is fantastic. No better place. I have 3 children, all primary school age. So when I am not using my spare time to play around with design, you will find me playing with my children, and they will take up most of my time. We have added a couple of St. Bedoodle puppies to to increase the craziness in our family, and we added those. They came to us just before Christmas last year, so they're coming up to 5 months. They, for anybody who doesn't know what a Saint Doodle is, it is actually a crossbreed between a Saint Bernard and a poodle. So our puppies are just coming up to 5 months now, and they're already bigger than most dogs that we meet on dog walks. A little snippet about me is that I love foreign language films. I absolutely think they're fantastic, much more interesting than the stuff that you get from Hollywood. And why I say that is because they're just quirky. They're quirky in their design. The visual side of things really interests me, and also the stories can be quite dark, a lot more sort of not risque, but probably risque, but yeah, just I don't know what the word is that I'm searching for that. But anyway, these are a few of my favourites. If you recognise any of these, then great, we can probably be friends. I'm not going to go through and tell you what they all are, but the film in the top left-hand corner is probably my favourite movie of all time. And you can see that from just these visuals that there's some real quirkiness to these sort of films. But I'm not going to talk about that because that's not what today's topic is about. Away from my sort of personal life, as Sagar mentioned, I work for Dyson. My role is lead data visualization developer. I'm the only person in Dyson that is a visualization specialist. So I'm quite unique within our company. I work for the global quality and sustainability team with Dyson. So in this instance, quality isn't data quality itself. We have engineers in our team that will work on data quality, but in this instance, quality is referring to the quality of our product. We monitor and we monitor effectively the quality of our products through a number of metrics, and to ensure that we feed back to the design process so that future products become better. We also cover the sustainability side of our business, where we are looking at using sustainable materials for our products. Our workers are working in good environment, and we look at our carbon footprint. Away from that, as Sagar mentioned, I've become a Zen Master this year, which has been an absolute privilege. It was never a goal, and it certainly was a surprise when I was asked to join. So it's a complete honour to be a Zen Master and be recognised.
Sam, sorry to disturb you. Sam, sorry to disturb you.
Yep.
I think everyone is facing some problem with your voice. I think sometimes it gets very low.
Does it?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. I haven't moved. I've just.
Do you want to just maybe?
Let's just try one thing.
Yeah.
So I'm on a wireless headset. It might be that I need to put it in to be connected. That up. Is that any better?
Yeah, much better now. Thank you, Sam.
Is it?
Sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry for disturbing you.
That's right.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. You haven't missed anything interesting so far, so let's just crack on. So I am the co-lead for the Southwest England user group. So I and a couple of others are trying to really develop a community in our area of England, based in Bristol, which is just over the hill from Bath. So it's going well, that user group. We do our virtual meetups, and not as regularly as we used to do with the in-person meetups, but we are still pushing that side of it. But today I'm here to talk to you about the role of data visualization specialist. So here's the agenda that we're going to cover. First of all, I'm going to talk about the demand for data visualization. One thing I'm not going to cover is what data visualization is. That's not this talk. I'm not going to go through things like the Gestalt principles, and I'm just going to assume that people understand what data visualization means as part of this. But we're going to talk about what the demand is for data visualization, what the role of a data visualization specialist actually is. So there's a difference between what people perceive it to be and what the reality is, what you do within the role. And then going back to that sort of where I started saying that I was contacted about how do you get into a role, what do you need to do to be a data visualization specialist. I'm going to talk about the core skills that you should really look to put into your skill set. Also talking about how, as a visualization specialist, you will look at a problem probably in a different way than what other data roles require. So we're going to look at the mindset, the stuff that you've got to think about. And then the really difficult topic is progression. So this is quite subjective because progression is very personal to you and your own role. But what I hope to do is to sort of give some ideas of how you can really sort of push for that next level up. And then we're going to talk about with all the above in mind, we're going to talk about employment. If this all suits you, then and you want to roll like this, what can you do to get yourself through the door? So demand. We hear an awful lot from companies like Tableau, visualization companies, that visualization, the requirement for visualization skills is on the increase. I completely agree with this, and I tried to do a little bit of research but ahead of this to try and really sort of visually show what that means. And part of that research was I found this chart, and this is from a UK job site. And what this is charting is it's charting the term data visualization as a portion. So what jobs have added data visualization as a proportion of all the IT jobs on their site. So you can see clearly that more and more jobs are asking for data visualization as part of the role, part of the skill set. This is just obviously a small snippet of the world. It's just based on the UK jobs, but I imagine that this is going to be sort of repeated elsewhere in America, India, wherever. It was also going to be repeated. The other indication to this is about a year and a half ago, there was two massive acquisitions of visualization products. So big companies came in for visualization software. Salesforce spent just under 16 billion to buy Tableau, and Google spent just under 4 billion to buy Looker. This is a real indication that these big companies, these big tech companies, see that a visualization as something they want to be a part of, they want as part of their product. If that is not a big indication to where visualization is currently, then I don't know what is. So that's the demand, and I think it is increasing, and I'd like to think so because I am in this sort of a role. So I'd like to think that more people are going to be able to do what I'm allowed to do in my current job. But the role itself, let's talk about that. If you imagine a line, a data skill line, let's say, visualization would probably sit at one end of the data skill line. On the other end, I've put Python, something really codey that you probably know. People who are going to be using Python as the main skill set of their role are probably not going to end up producing visualizations. It's at the other end of the skill line. There are other skills that I've added to this skill line that is obviously going to be up for debate. And what I say here is not necessarily the one rule that fits all. These skills can sometimes, will be encased or be used by different teams. So data science, data warehousing, and reporting. Again, this could be up for conjecture to say what covers what and where it sort of fits, but generally it's kind of around there in my head. Now, the typical data team would typically have or previously would have an analyst that would sit across and would have skills that cover a number of these data skills. So their remit would be they might do a bit of visualization, but they might also need to use a bit of SQL to pull the data in. They might even get involved in creating the views and the data tables. And then within the data team, you might have, say, 4 people within your data team. and they would all have to spread their skills to be able to produce that end product. And this is where I see data teams sort of regularly having people that need to be multi-skilled. And that's because they are probably less mature data teams or smaller in size. When you get to just thinking about data visualization specialist roles, though, they start to come about when your data teams become a bit more mature. They might be larger, they might be 15 people big, or even larger than that. But when you start to get to a certain size with your data team, you are then able to look through this sort of lens where you bring in somebody who concentrates on the visualization side of the business. Maybe you have a data analyst within your reporting section that is also very skilled in SQL to help pull the data. You'll have data warehouse engineers that cover certain elements. And this is where people start specializing in roles. And what that means is they then are able to really utilize their time and training focusing on the role that really suits them and their interests. And that's where the data visualization specialist is. Or in my role, I do very little SQL, and I'm very much right at the end of this spectrum. Now, visualization is also very close to brand and creative skill set, because brand creative is graphic design and that sort of stuff, and as a visualizer you start to transcend into that graphic design element, so it's very closely linked to your brand and creative type teams. So it's quite broad. It's not necessarily all just data with a visualization role. Now, the perception of a visualization role is that people will quite often perceive your main strength as being you display stuff in a pretty way, and that's quite frustrating for most people that do data visualization, because it's a lot more than that. There's a lot more thought into it than just making something look nice. There's other perceptions is it's not as important as ETL and data science. The people perceive that really investing into this stuff is far more important than just getting somebody to make things look pretty. The other perception is all you do is business dashboards. That's just all you do. That's all you're employed for. You're just doing report after report. All of that is incorrect in my experience. The reality is of a data visualization specialist role, and this is the truth, is you're required to assess the landscape of the reports. You have to come in and look at what is there originally. So say you come into your business, whether or not the role has been there before or it's a new role, you come in and you have to use your skill set to assess what has gone on before you. You need to look at what people are doing with the reporting, the core content already. Then you need to devise a strategy to level up that core content. You need to really look at that and go, right, how can we make this better? How can we improve? This is what our role is. How can we get people more engaged? User engagement is a massive part of this role. This is where I argue that data visualization is just as important as your ETL and your data science stuff, because there is no point in really working on a data set to become the best data set in the world ever if you just cannot engage your audience at the end product to look at that data and to use it. So user engagement is absolutely key as part of role of the visualization specialist, because the visualization specialist is more likely to be that person that is talking to the users and presenting the data and talking to them about the reports that they have. You obviously bring the visual best practices with you. You need to understand those visual best practices and apply them in your company. But you have to apply them within reason. We do have a lot of we have a lot of noise around visual best practices of saying only use so many colors. Too many colors will be conflicting, and it will just look like a unicorn being sick. These sort of things come to you all the time. But what works for the business, what works for the data, is really the most paramount thing. I do have dashboards in my company where we have 20 different colors on the dashboard, and that has been requested from the users because they really find that it really helps them to be able to see their data rather than just using a grayscale color scheme and picking out one color. Sometimes you just can't do that. So visual best practices you try to adhere to, but you have to read the room as well. And then you use that to teach and train others. So if we go back to that data skill line where we had the data analyst who was a little bit into, still in reporting, but he was doing a bit more SQL maybe than the visualization specialist, you would probably be expected to teach and train those people in those visual best practices to help them understand what they need to do to get things to the right sort of level. Ideally, you connect to the company's brand and creative team. As a visualization specialist, you need to understand what the brand of the company is, what the likelihood is you come in and people haven't even considered the core colors of your company and bringing those into your dashboards, or even the fact that you use the company's official typeface. You need to read your brand's documentation over what they think the rules are around using your logo, your colors in your company, and understand that and try and bring that into your dashboards. The reason for that is if you do that, then your the dashboards that you're producing, they will eventually come up the chain to execs and directors, and they will be more used to seeing stuff that looks like it's coming from their company. So you want to be prepared to be able to do that. You create core content to showcase your data, which is an obvious point, and you look to new formats to engage your audience so that they generate that interest around the data that you're showing. And all of this is an iterative process within the role. It's ongoing. You don't ever stop. You don't ever go, right, we've leveled up. Now we can sit back and just do. You never do that. There's always updates to Tableau. If you're using Tableau, there's always new things that you can look to bring into your reporting to give your users the best experience that you can. And so that just keeps going, it doesn't stop. There's an additional remit to the role as well, where it's not just all about business dashboards. Quite often, I am being asked to produce infographics at work. So I will take data that I'm given from sub teams in my global quality and sustainability team, and I will be asked to produce infographics on sustainability, on the reliability of our products, and with that I'll use different tools. So I'll maybe push the data through Tableau and then bring it into Illustrator and produce a more branded look of the data. We also do things like data-led posters, and this is something else that you can really do to really push the data storytelling side of your data. And what the idea of this is that if you start displaying your posters around your business, put them up on the walls where non-data people are walking past, other teams walk past those data posters, they will stop and start to read and understand and see and it will generate that interest in your data. And we've had that where well, I'll talk about this in a couple of slides in a couple of clicks time, but I can move on a second. So also you'll get involved in a lot of presentations because you are that person that can really sort of front end something, because you are effectively a designer. So people come to you to present, ask you to present stuff, present the data. That's part of your core skills, is your communication. And you just end up being a creative go-to for the wider team because people will see you as that designer. So this is your standard sort of stuff, your business dashboard that you will be doing, but you'll also be pushing into doing more stuff like this. And I have done, and this is what I was about to say just a minute ago, I have done posters with data art in them. So I have done radials showing the pollution levels that are picked up in our purifiers that we have around the world. And I'll be displaying that in radials showing by city, by month, the pollution levels. And it's the same data that people have interacted with in other dashboards. It's just displayed completely differently. And that has really created interest and buzz around what they've seen. It's like that. And it's a really interesting side of the role that you get to do this sort of stuff as well. So let's talk about the skills that you need as a data visualization specialist. First and foremost, in the top left there, deep knowledge of one or more visualization tools. That goes without saying. So if you are a Tableau developer, Tableau is your tool, you really need to know that tool inside and out. You need to bring with you some skills on understanding things like color theory, understanding how to put colors together so they don't clash, what color combinations work, the accessibility of those colors, so color blindness, but also even accessibility of typeface and creating fonts that are big enough for people to read. You need to really work on your analytical skills. So I've got 3 points here that I think are key to really helping you thrive in the role of reporting and visualization specialist. You need to learn your business. So you need to really sort of understand the metrics that are in your business that you're using and understand your business questions. You need to understand your stakeholders, talk to them, communicate with them, really talk to them, understand what are they trying to get from your data, what questions are they trying to answer. But also be mindful of what has your data engineering team done beforehand. How have they mined the data? Where's the data coming from? How are they refreshing it? What data assumptions are in there? What level of aggregation is the data coming through at? To know all of those 3 things will really help you be in a great position to then start producing some visuals that will help the insight side of the business. Ideally, occasionally even, you might want to upskill in other areas. You can break out of that, even though you're in a stream. You might want to learn a bit of coding. So I'm doing that myself at the moment. I'm learning a little bit of SQL because I never had SQL in my skill set before. And that just allows you to not rely on some of the other streams, the other specialists so much. The real key one here, and I pulled it out in red, is communications. Communication is a massive skill set for this role. You need to be able to talk to people and understand what they need, not just from an individual dashboard point of view, but just holistically, what is working for them from your core design of your business dashboards. But you also need to be able to have that technical level of communication. So things like this PowerPoint deck, are you able to communicate visually with the tools that you have? Those are 2 real key elements. Ideally, if you can, bring other skills, technical skills with you, that's great. So the Adobe Creative Cloud, things like Illustrator and InDesign, those are all really good things to have with you. And if you've got graphic design skills or a background in UI design or UX design, that's all going to help you as part of this. It's just extra elements to it. Attention to detail sounds quite minor, but it's absolutely huge. You talk to any of the masters or anybody in the community who's known for their design, they will all tell you that their dashboards, they all move objects around pixel by pixel till they get them right. It's that detail with design that really helps it flourish. And as with that, did you spot the little monkey at the top that appeared? It's up here. If you did, then you have that attention to detail. Let's talk about mindset then. So those are just the sort of technical skills that you might need in the role. But how is it that, what do we do that we consider that other people don't really? Brand is a big one. We need to ensure that we are staying on message. As I've mentioned brand before, we need to understand our colors, the hex codes that we would use for our color combinations. We need to understand the typeface, when and where we can use stuff. The logos, so we have a Dyson logo in my company. There will be rules around what you can and cannot do with that logo. You need to make sure that you stay on that message. So you need to consider brand. You need to also consider user experience. This is huge. So be conscious of interactions. What I mean by that is there is no point in producing dashboards or reports that just won't load, take too long to interact with. It will put people off. Be conscious of the design of those interactions as well. If you're creating custom buttons, do they actually look and feel like buttons when you're clicking them? It's things like this that put people off your data, and you want to maintain that engagement. User interface. Are your designs, are your builds of your dashboard intuitive? Are you using icons to demonstrate stuff? But are those icons really intuitive to people? You might be thinking you're adding all this extra information and content there that's going to be really helpful for everybody. But if it's not intuitive to them, they won't interact with it and they won't find it. So you want to make sure that your designs are intuitive. So you need to consider that. And obviously I keep mentioning engagement. You need to maintain this, otherwise all the work that's gone before you in all those other specialist positions is just, it's dead in the water. You want to keep that engagement up, and to also maintain that engagement, you need to talk to people. Color message, be aware of your pre-attentive attributes. That's something we consider as a visualization specialist. That so with that pre-attentive attributes, I'm talking things like green is good, red is bad. If you're going to use those colors, be sure to be aware of what people might interpret them to. You could do the same things with cultural influences. So you might put red on a dashboard to indicate something that's bad, but when it goes to your Japan market, they might see that as lucky. Accessibility is another thing we all have to consider. Color blindness is always a challenge, because some companies are so sort of set in their ways with the red and green is good and the ragging status, that they don't want to break away from that. But red and green is really bad for color blindness. So you need to be aware of this sort of stuff, and the readability of what you're producing. Is everything legible? It's that sort of elements that we sort of have to consider. So this is now the tricky one, progression. And this is really sort of coming from my own sort of experience, and it might not be one thing fits all here. So some just sort of tips to really sort of push yourself in your own boss's eye, or to sort of really sort of showcase yourself, really. This is on top of your just generic roles that we've been talking about. So take ownership and lead. What does that mean? So you are the specialist, have confidence in your own ability, and start to control your own workload. So don't rely on somebody or your boss to pass you a new project to work on, and then you finish the project and then you sort of have a bit of downtime waiting for the next one to come in. Don't wait for it. Go thinking about what can you take the lead. What can you do? What can you add? Look at your core content. What is missing? Is there some data that would be really interesting that you know probably is there in your company but hasn't been mined yet? Go speak to your data engineering guys and your ETL guys and say, is this possible? Can we bring this in? Because I've got some ideas on a new view that I think would be interesting. Nobody's asked for it, but I would like to work on it. It's that sort of taking that ownership and leading shows that you're working at that next level. Like the rules. So this is something that I've done in my company, but it's something that I really advocate. So we talk about looking at the content and leveling it up. Why not produce a design guide for all the reporting development, either within your team, or you can push it even further than that. And you might have a design guide. You might say, oh, we've already got one in our team. Well, when was it last done? When was it last produced? Is it out of date? Does it need to be refreshed? Can you put a new spin on that design guide? Or just create one from scratch. So in my own company, they didn't actually realize that they needed one. So I produced one, and it was a very in-depth thing talking about all the stuff, all the elements and things that we've already just discussed, color, typography, all of this stuff. And it really landed well, because it gave the boundaries to some of the other developers on what they need to do to create consistent content. And that consistency is really key with the engagement as well, because if your dashboards are becoming inconsistent between each other in their layout and their design, then your customers will become familiar with them and start to trust them a little bit more. So take the time to really put down your thoughts on what needs to be done with writing the rules. Pass on your skills. So this is a really big one, I think, is start mentoring others internally. And what this does is it really shows that you're putting promoting others to the forefront, and you're showing that willingness to develop people, and also your ability to teach people. So that tells your boss that you're working at that level. You're not just stuck doing your your job of producing your dashboards and your infographics and your design stuff, you're thinking wider than that. What about the team? What can I do to help other people? And break down that barriers. Again, this is thinking about that next step, that next level on from what your actual role is. So you might not be within a centralized function. You might work within your own team, but don't lock away all the stuff to just within your team. Help the other side of the business, help the other data teams. You might have produced that style guide, pass it on to them. You might mentor people outside of your own team. Keep that, what it's doing is it's keeping that business interest to the forefront. And that's showing that your mindset is not just focusing on your own little world. You're thinking about the business as a whole. These four little points that I'm just talking about are just four things that I think tangibly you can do to sort of really showcase yourself to your leader, to your boss, that, hey, I'm ready for that next step. I don't need to wait for you to pass me work. I can think for myself. I can promote people, and I'm looking at the business as a whole. So, like I said, this is very subjective because everybody's roles are different, but I think this is something that can really help people. And then if all of that is of interest to you, you want to become a data visualization specialist, well, what can you do what can you do beforehand to really sort of push yourself ahead of the other candidates? First and foremost, provide a link or access to your design work. It doesn't have to be Tableau public if you're working in other tools, and create yourself a Behance account. Provide that link on your resume or CV. Show them what you can do, because effectively you are a designer. I got my role with Dyson by doing just this. I was in my interview and I presented on screen my Tableau Public profile. At the time, I had only been using Tableau Public 3 months, so I had I think it might have been about 8 visits on my Tableau Public, and so and they weren't the best things in the world. But what I was up against with other candidates were other designers or other Tableau developers that they might well have been better at design than me. They might well have been more experienced than me, but they didn't provide any visual evidence of what they do. They didn't provide any links to any Tableau public. They couldn't showcase anything. So this really, if you provide that link, provide that into your design, the stuff that you can do, it really does push you ahead of a lot of the other candidates. Make sure that you also include in your portfolio some analytical pieces. So if we go back to that original ask from the student saying, well, how can I get into design? I've got no experience. I'm a student. Everything's asking for 1 or 2 years of experience. Well, you might not have experience, but you can certainly show off that you understand how to analyze a new data set, a piece of work. If you bring in analytical pieces, so you were able to bring those onto screen and talk about what the choices are that you made with that data, how you pulled the data around to find some nuggets of real insight, and how you then presented those in your design piece. That is going to really sort of promote you and show, I might not have the experience, but I know how to get there. Certifications do help. I am certified with Tableau. I'm certified with Adobe Illustrator. What they do is they show your ability to learn and willingness to keep on improving. They also show to recruiters that recruiters might not know or look at your portfolio and think, yeah, that's good. They might not know that, but they do know what a certification is and what that represents. So that does help you. This is a big topic. This is a big one that I'm feel very strongly on. Vary your design style. So what by this, you see a lot of people on the Tableau public sort of side of things that you will know when they've done a viz, because you're like, oh yeah, that is definitely theirs. They've done that. It's the same sort of style as last time, and it works for them, and it gets a lot of likes. It gets a lot of engagement, but If that's what you're after, then that's great. But what you want to be able to show as from a business point of view or from a recruiting point of view is that you are almost like an artist and a graphic designer. You want to be able to show that you're not just a one-trick pony. You don't know what role you're going to be going into or what the ask of that role is. So if you can show that you can design a number of different ways, different styles, then that really showcases your understanding of design. And then this is a good one, which is really sort of elevate yourself. You come into sort of a community like the Tableau world, and it can be quite daunting. You think, oh, there are Zen masters, there are ambassadors, there's all these people that are doing fantastic stuff. You know, I don't really have a voice. Well, you do have a voice, and I really encourage people to open up a blog and talk about what their opinions are on the stuff that matter to them. So for me, it's visualization. I've opened my blog because I wanted to have that voice to talk about stuff. So I would talk about things like integrating Adobe Illustrator with Tableau. I would talk about typography. I would even used some of my Tableau public pieces to talk about bar chart design. It's those sort of things that's showing that you're thinking wider than just an individual piece of work. You're thinking about visualization on a next level. And it's these things that really sort of showcase you as a person. And I would encourage people to start doing that because you'd learn a bit about yourself and your own thoughts while you do it. And then just prove that your skills can transcend other mediums. It doesn't have to be Tableau. It can be other design tools. And all of this just really puts you as a designer, as a visual creative person to the forefront. And that is my talk about the role of data visualization specialist. So thank you, Sagar, for having me. I don't know if there will be questions. At the bottom here is my Twitter profile and my website. I hope you found it interesting. I certainly enjoyed presenting it anyway, saying my piece.
Thank you, Sam, for that, sharing all the best practice tips and tricks and sharing your passion about it. So maybe I can ask the first question, Sam. How did your journey started in this data visualization, right? And if you want to give maybe 2 or 3 tips for someone to go ahead and get started, what they should do now.
Wow. So I'm very lucky. My sort of background was I spent 14 years working as an analyst, and I hadn't even really heard of data visualization in my sort of career at all. Yes, I was using Excel, and I was pretty much using Excel every day, and I was doing charts and creating reports with Excel. Yeah, where I came to fall into my sort of role as a visualization specialist was we brought in Tableau into our company because our reporting system at the time was just so archaic, so frustrating. We brought in Tableau and we brought in the data school. And it was the data school who started, so the information lab over in London, talking about here, we had a data school come over and they started to train us up on Tableau and immediately I was hooked. At the same time, also, I was losing my interest in the company itself. There were some things going on with my role that I wasn't particularly happy with. So I saw, hey, there's this new thing called Tableau, never even heard of it. It really sort of allows me to reconnect to my design background because I used to be, I did a design engineering degree. And I'd 14 years, I hadn't even touched anything to do with that. And so that's then just got me out looking for jobs. And I'm just lucky that Dyson is literally a 20-minute drive from my house. And I started looking on their website thinking, oh, I know they use Tableau. Maybe they've got anything there. And there were a few roles there. And one of them was this visualization specialist. And I thought, I could probably do it, but I've got no experience. Well, what the heck? I'll apply anyway. And that's where I applied. It was a standard sort of Word document, sort of CV. But the first thing I put on that was the link to my Tableau public profile because around the same time I had my first visit of the day. So I thought I must be all right at this. I've got a visit of the day, and And that was the real crux of what got me through the door. Was they looked at my Tableau Public in its early days, which is quite terrible if you look far enough down my list of vises on my Tableau Public. But they saw enough in there that they thought it was better than what they had in their team, and so they wanted to talk to me. So yeah, that's kind of my journey into it. I kind of fell into it, really. It was never a thing when I went through university. It was never anything that anybody suggested to me directly. It was just a case of circumstance, right place, right time.
Thank you, Sam, for sharing that. And what was the role of maybe creating a Tableau public profile and the community? Like, you were getting feedback for your work.
Oh
Did you
yeah,
reach
yeah.
out? Yeah.
So I was part of a team. So back in when we had the data school to come in and start training us, I was part of a team of about say five people that were all getting the same training, and everybody was being told, get involved on Twitter, get involved on the community, do start up a Tableau public profile. Doesn't matter if you don't think it's any good, publish it and post it on Twitter and ask for feedback on the community. And it might feel that you're not good enough to be on there. It might feel that nobody's going to respond, but you will get that feedback come back from the community, and you'll learn from it. And I was pretty much the only person who did that, who thought, okay, fine, if that's what I need to do, I'll listen and I'll do it. So I started up my Twitter account. That's the only time I ever had Twitter. I started up my Tableau Public, and I started putting stuff onto Twitter to say, hey, I'm here. This is what I've done. What do people think? And immediately I was getting people coming back saying, yeah, that's great. Have you considered doing this? People like Sarah Bartlett was one of the first people who interacted with me on Tableau, Twitter. And it's that feedback that sort of then starts giving you the confidence to go, okay, maybe I'm doing stuff the right way. Maybe this is something I can actually do. And then when you eventually you get your first visit of the day come through because you've done something. It wasn't even one that I thought really warranted it. That was just a light bulb moment, thinking, wow, I've got 10,000 views on this viz. That's just mind blowing. 10,000 people have looked at this viz that I've just created, and I didn't think it was all that. And that just sort of turned the light bulb on in my head. This is great. I want a bit more of this.
Thank you, Sam. So if you have any question for Sam, just feel free to just put in the chat. Happy to ask him. And
yeah, or if anybody wants to just ask me questions outside of this, they can contact me on Twitter directly or on LinkedIn. I haven't put my LinkedIn one on the screen, but you should be able to get through it from my Tableau public profile. Yeah, I'm more than happy to answer questions off of this as well.
Sure. I'm not sure. Like, you can take a call if you want to answer this, Sam. So Shelly is asking, can you share your insight on salary expectations, maybe in US dollars? And does this role have other names besides specialist?
So to answer the second one first, yes, these roles do have more just a name than specialist. They're quite often called developers. They could be visualization analyst. Visualization tends to be the key thing, but you can also. And the reason for that is if you're only interested in that specialism that I'm talking about today, then a job profile should really be calling that out in the job title. If you are seeing it's called a data analyst, then you would really want to look at the profile of that job description to see what are they actually asking for, what skills are they looking for here. Are they naming tools like Tableau or Power BI as the first thing on the list? Or are they talking about other elements of data? So I would really be expecting visualization to be in there somewhere on the job profile or on the job title. In terms of salary, I wouldn't be able to convert it into US dollars because I don't know how to do that. But in terms of salary, I think you would be quite in your rights to be paid in English terms, 40,000 and plus a year, I think. for something like this, for the specialism that it is. Yeah, I think in fact, that website, so if you were to go back to the recording, the website that I showed with the trend line, they actually have on the same page, the next chart down is salary bands and a histogram on the number of jobs and the salaries that they have. And that actually ranged, I think it went to 120,000, I think some people were getting paid for, so £120,000 for a role that includes data visualization as one of its skills. So it's quite wide ranging, but I think you're in a decent level there for these sort of roles. Or certainly I get, without telling you, but I get certainly a lot more than what I used to.
Sure. Thank you, Sam, for that. Just one last question. Any books you want to advise, maybe on data visualization, storytelling?
Yeah, Andy. So the one I'm reading at the moment is fantastic, and that's it's not in this room, annoyingly. It's by my bedside table, and that's by Andy Kirk, and that's data visualization. It's his second, I think it's his second book that he's done on that, and that's absolutely brilliant so far. And I'm reading through that, and I'm not somebody who likes to read books. I've got a lot of data visualization books just purely so I can look at the pictures most of the time, but I don't read them all. But I'm not a big reader. But that one from Andy Kirk, and I've met Andy actually. Did a session at Dyson one time. He came in and spoke to us about data visualization. He's really good. So yeah, so I definitely recommend that book. For pure inspiration of visualization, I love the knowledge is beautiful and the information is beautiful. Infographic-y type things that David McCandless does. If you're looking at sort of technical, how you're presenting your data and what to do and what not to do, then How Charts Lie by Alberto Cairo is a really good one. There's so many books, I could go on and on, storytelling with data and things like that, but for definite, I would say Andy Kirk and his data visualization book that he does is really good.
Perfect. With that, thank you, Sam. It was an honor to have you on VizConnect, and thank you for sharing everything about data visualization with the community.
Thank you. No, thank you for having me. Really enjoyed it. Hope